أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Surah 45,
Surah Al-Jathiya,
Kneeling, Meccan period. Title: Since the word
Al-Jathiya,
kneeling occurs in verse 28 of this surah, it is known by this title. Period of revelation. It appears from the contents of the surah that it must have been revealed immediately after
Surah Al-Dukhan.
The subject matter of the two surahs is so closely related that they can be regarded as twins. Subject matter and themes. The main theme of this surah is to remove the unbelievers' doubts and answer their objections regarding monotheism and the hereafter, and to send them a note of warning as regards their attitude to Islam. The surah opens with presenting evidence for monotheism. In this regard, it mentions man's own existence and the innumerable signs spread all over from heaven to earth. They are told that they can observe the proofs of monotheism that they deny wherever they look. If one looks around with open eyes and is straight in one's thinking, then the variety of wild animals, the alternation of day and night, rainfall, and the vegetation to which it gives rise, the winds and man's own creation, all provide persuasive proof of the fact that this universe is neither without God nor has a multiplicity of gods. Rather, the universe is the handiwork of a single creator who alone regulates and governs it. However, if we are talking of someone who has sworn to disbelieve or has made up his mind to remain immersed in doubt, then this is a very different case. Nothing can lead that person to the treasure of belief. Later in the surah, see verses 12, man is told that all the things he benefits from in this world and the innumerable objects and forces of this universe that serve his interests are not there automatically, nor have they been provided by any of his gods and goddesses. Rather, all these have been provided by the one true God and harnessed to man's service. The rationality of every person who adopts straight thinking will cry out that it is the one true God who is man's benefactor, and he alone deserves to be thanked. Thereafter, the Meccan unbelievers are severely reproached for their obstinacy and arrogance, their mocking attitude, and their obstinate clinging to the unbelief with which they greeted the Quranic call. They're emphatically told that the Quran has come down with the same bounty that was bestowed earlier on the children of Israel, the bounty thanks to which they enjoyed excellence over all other nations in the world. However, they demonstrated ingratitude and caused the teachings of their faith to be lost in schism and dissension. Now, the same bounty is being offered to the Meccans. It is a guideline that directs man to the straight way of true faith. Those who reject this will court disaster. Only those who accept it and become God-fearing will merit God's clemency and support. In this regard, the Prophet's followers are instructed to act with patience and forbearance towards those who were subjecting them to mean and horrid treatment. If they patiently bear with their persecution, God will avenge on their behalf and will reward them for their patience. This is followed by the discussion of the unbelievers' flawed notions about the hereafter. Their mistaken belief that there is no afterlife is forcefully refuted. The unbelievers thought that death is the terminal point and that the soul does not exist. They ruled out resurrection. They even had the audacity to challenge the Prophet, peace be upon him, to revive their ancestors to prove the truth of the hereafter. In response to their objections, the Quran presents the following arguments in quick succession. First, their rejection of the hereafter is not based on any definite knowledge. They dismiss it whimsically. What is the basis of their contention that there is no afterlife? How can they assert that souls are not seized and simply perish at death? Their objection rests at most on their observation that they have not witnessed any of the dead rising from their graves. Is this sufficient evidence for rejecting resurrection? If one does not know, see, or hear about a thing, does this necessarily mean that it does not exist? Furthermore, it is against the dictates of reason and justice that those who are good and those who are evil, the obedient and the rebellious, the oppressor and the oppressed should meet the same end. Reason and justice demand that they must be recompensed in accordance with their deeds. Victims should be redressed, while wrongdoers should be punished. Those entertaining such notions as the non-existence of resurrection have a very faulty concept of the universe. Furthermore, those who are evil naturally try to avoid the dire consequences of their misdeeds. However, divine dispensation is not haphazard. It is a perfect scheme of things in which those who are evil are bound to suffer punishment and the pious are bound to be rewarded. All cannot be treated alike. Rejection of the hereafter is also morally flawed. Only those who give fresh rein to their unbridled desires deny the hereafter. Once they opt for this view, they become morally degenerate, and as a consequence are unable to benefit from God's guidance. God emphasizes that since man does not bring about his own life and is dependent upon him for it, he also cannot bring upon himself death. It is God who also causes his death. There will be the day of reckoning when all men will be gathered simultaneously. They will then see with their own eyes that they appear before God, and their record of deeds is presented, testifying to all that they did. It is then that they will realize the gravity of their error in having rejected and mocked belief in the hereafter. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Ha-Mim.
تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم.
This book is a revelation from the Most Mighty, the Most Wise.
1. In this brief introduction to the surah, the listeners have been warned of two things. 1. That this book is not the composition of Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself, but it is being sent down to him by Allah. 2. That it is being sent down by that Allah who is almighty as well as all-wise. His being the Almighty demands that man should not dare disobey his commands, for if he disobeys him, he cannot escape his punishment. And his being the all-wise demands that man should obey and follow his guidance and his commands with full satisfaction and willingness of the heart, for there can be no possibility of his teachings being wrong or inadequate or harmful in any way.
إن في السماوات والأرض لآيات للمؤمنين.
Behold, for those who believe, there are myriad signs in the heavens and the earth.
2. To begin the discourse like this after the introduction indicates that in the background there are the objections of the people of Mecca, which they were raising against the teachings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. They said, after all, how can we believe this one man when he says that all those great beings to whose shrines we have been dedicated and devoted so far are nothing and that Godhead belongs to only one God? About this it is being said that the world is replete with the signs of the reality to which they are being invited. If only they saw with open eyes, they would find those signs in themselves and outside them everywhere, which testify that this whole universe is the creation of one and only one God, and He alone is its master and ruler and controller. It didn't need to be pointed out what was the nature of the signs in the earth and heavens, for the dispute at that time centered around the point that the polytheists were insisting on believing in other gods and deities besides Allah, and the Quran gave the message that there was neither a god nor a deity beside one God. Therefore, it was apparent by itself from the content that the signs were of the truth of Tawhid and of the refutation of Shirk. As for the sentence, the signs are for those who believe, it means that although the signs are meant for all human beings, only those people can reach the right conclusion from their observation, who are inclined to believe. As for the heedless people, who live like animals, and the stubborn people who are resolved not to believe, the existence and the non-existence of the signs is equal. The splendor and beauty of the garden is for those who can see. A blind man cannot perceive any splendor and beauty. For him even the existence of the garden is meaningless.
وَفِي خَلْقِكُمْ وَمَا يَبُثُّ مِن دَابَّةٍ آيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُوقِنُونَ.
and in your own creation, and in the animals which He spreads out over the earth, too, there are signs for those endowed with sure faith.
3. That is, the case of those who have made up their minds not to believe, or of those who have chosen for themselves to remain lost in the blind alleys of doubt, is different. But when those who have not locked up their hearts against belief and conviction will consider seriously their own creation, the structure of their own body, and the variety of animals found on the earth, they will see countless signs as will leave no doubt in their minds that all this did not come into being without a God, or that it stood in need of more than one God for its creation. For explanation, see Surah Al-An'am, ayats 37-38, Surah An-Nahl, ayats 5-8, Surah Al-Hajj, ayat 57, Surah Al-Mu'minun, ayats 12-14, Surah Al-Furqan, ayat 54, Surah Ash-Shu'ara, ayats 78-81, Surah An-Naml, ayat 64, Surah Ar-Rum, ayats 20-21, 54, E.Ns 14-18 of Surah As-Sajda, Surah Yasin, ayats 71-73, Surah Az-Zimr, ayat 6, and E.Ns 97, 98, 110 of Surah Al-Mu'min.
واختلاف الليل والنهار وما أنزل الله من السماء من رزق فأحيا به الأرض بعد موتها وتصريف الرياح آيات لقوم يعقلون.
And in the succession of night and day, and in the provision that Allah sends down from the sky, wherewith He gives life to the earth after it had been lifeless, and in the change of the winds, in all these there are signs for people who use reason.
4. The difference of the night and day is a sign because one follows the other with full regularity, because one is bright and the other dark, because over a certain period the day goes on shortening and the night lengthening gradually till the two become equal in duration, then again the day goes on lengthening and the night shortening till the two again become equal in duration. These different kinds of variations found in the night and the day and the great aspects of wisdom that accrue from these, are a clear pointer to the fact that the Creator of the sun and the earth and of everything on the earth is one, and that one all-powerful being is keeping both these spheres under His control. Such a being is not deaf and blind and unwise but all-wise, who has established this unalterable system and made His earth a suitable place for the countless species of life, which He has created here in the form of vegetables, animals and men. For explanation, see Surah Yunus, ayat 67, Surah An-Naml, ayat 86, Surah Al-Qasas, ayat 71-73, Surah Luqman, ayat 29 and En 50, Surah Yasin, ayat 37 and En 32. 5. Provision, rainfall as becomes evident from the following sentence. 6. For explanation, see Surah Al-Mu'minun, ayats 18-20, Surah Al-Furqan, ayats 48-49, Surah Ash-Shu'ara, ayat 7, Surah An-Naml, ayat 61, Surah Ar-Rum, ayats 24, 48, Surah Yasin, E.Ns 26-31. 7. The circulation of the winds implies the circulation of the different kinds of winds at different times, on different parts of the earth and at different heights, which cause change of the seasons. What deserves attention is not only that above the surface of the earth there is a thick atmosphere, which contains all those elements needed by living beings for breathing, and this thick covering has kept the earth's population safe from many of the heavenly calamities. Besides, another noteworthy thing is that the air is not just filled inertly in the atmosphere, but it blows occasionally in different ways. Sometimes a cool wind blows and sometimes a hot wind. Sometimes it stops blowing and sometimes it starts blowing. Sometimes it blows soft and sometimes strong, and sometimes it assumes the proportions of a storm. Sometimes a dry wind blows and sometimes a moist wind. Sometimes it brings the rain, and sometimes it drives away the clouds. These different kinds of the winds do not blow without a purpose, but under a law and a system, which testifies that this arrangement is based on perfect wisdom, and it is serving great objectives. Then it is deeply related with coolness and heat, which go on increasing and decreasing according to the changing conditions and relationships between the earth and the sun. Furthermore, it has a deep relation with the seasonal changes and the distribution of the rain. All these facts proclaim that these arrangements have not been made haphazardly by some blind nature. Nor the sun and the earth and the air and water and vegetation and animals have separate controllers, but inevitably one God alone is the creator of them all, and it is His wisdom that has established this system for a great objective, and it is His power that it is functioning regularly according to a preordained law.
تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق فبأي حديث بعد الله وآياته يؤمنون.
These are Allah's signs that we rehearse to you in truth. In what kind of discourse after Allah and His signs will they then believe?
8. That is, when these people have not believed even after Allah's own arguments have been presented for His existence and His unity, what else can be there by which they will gain the faith? For Allah's word is the final thing by which a person can attain to this blessing, and the maximum of the rational arguments that could possibly be given to convince someone of an unseen reality have been presented in this divine word. In spite of this, if a person is bent upon denial, he may persist in his denial, for his denial cannot change the reality.
وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ أَفَّاكٍ أَثِيمٍ.
Woe to every guilty impostor.
يسمع آيات الله تتلى عليه ثم يصر مستكبرا كأن لم يسمعها فبشره بعذاب أليم.
Who hears Allah's signs being rehearsed to him, and yet persists in his pride, as though he had not heard it. Announce to him then the tidings of a grievous chastisement.
9. In other words, there is a marked difference between the person who listens to Allah's revelations sincerely with an open mind and ponders over them seriously, and the person who listens to them resolved that he would deny them, and then persists in the resolve already made without any serious thought. If the first person does not believe in the revelations immediately, it does not mean that he wants to remain an unbeliever, but because he wants to have greater satisfaction. Therefore, even if he is taking time to believe, it is just possible that another revelation might enter his heart, and he might believe sincerely with full satisfaction. As for the other person, he would never believe in any revelation whatsoever, for he has already locked his heart up to every revelation of Allah. In this state, such people generally are involved as are characterized by the following three qualities. 1. They are liars, therefore, the truth does not appeal to them. 2. They are wrongdoers, therefore, it is very hard for them to believe in a teaching or guidance that may impose moral restrictions on them. 3. They are involved in the conceit that they know everything, and that none can teach them anything. Therefore, they do not regard as worthy of attention and consideration Allah's revelations that are recited to them, and it is all the same for them whether they listen to them or not.
وَإِذَا عَلِمَ مِنْ آيَاتِنَا شَيْئًا اتَّخَذَهَا هُزُوًا أُولَئِكَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ.
Whenever he comes to know anything of our signs, he makes them an object of jest. For such there awaits a humiliating chastisement.
10. That is, he does not rest content with mocking any one particular revelation, but mocks all the revelations. For example, when he hears that a particular thing has been mentioned in the Quran, he does not take it in its straightforward meaning, but first puts a crooked meaning on it in order to make it a subject of ridicule and mockery. Then, after making fun of it, says, "These are strange things. One daily hears one or the other funny thing from them."
مِنْ وَرَائِهِمْ جَهَنَّمُ وَلَا يُغْنِي عَنْهُمْ مَا كَسَبُوا شَيْئًا وَلَا مَا اتَّخَذُوا مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ.
is behind them. Their worldly earnings shall not avail them, nor those whom they took as protectors instead of Allah. An awesome chastisement lies in store for them.
11. The word wara is used for every such thing as is hidden from man, whether it is before him or behind him. Therefore, another translation can be, they have hell behind them. In the first case, the meaning would be, they are unconsciously running on this way and have no idea that there is hell in front of them in which they would fall. In the second case, it would mean, they are engaged in this mischief of theirs, thoughtless of the hereafter, and they have no idea that hell is in pursuit of them. 12. Here, the word wali, guardian, has been used in two meanings. 1. For those gods and goddesses and living and dead guides about whom the polytheists thought that anybody who was devoted to them would escape Allah's punishment, whatever he might have done in the world, for their intercession will save them from Allah's wrath. 2. For those chiefs and leaders and rulers whom the people took as their guides and patrons independent of God and followed them blindly, and tried to please them even if they had to displease God. This verse warns all such people that when they will face hell in consequence of this way of lift, either of the two kinds of the guardians will come forward to save them from it. For explanation, see E.N.6 of Surah Ash-Shura.